What's up, everybody? I am Eric. This is Gary. Today we are smoking the Nica Rustica by Drew Estate. We're talking about all in depth about my Match.com singles archery event and why we consider ourselves politically homeless, along with a whole lot more. This is Cedar Culture.
Kick back and relax, it's time to shoot the shit. Hanging out with the broskies, Gary and Eric. Let the ash go long and the convo stay pure. That's Cedar Culture. That's Cedar Culture. That's Cedar Culture.
Let's bundle these leaves and burn them and suck on them.
Mr. Nica Rustica. So I think I've had one of these before.
I've definitely had one. I don't remember the taste, but I remember liking it. It's a Maduro, so it should be.
Yeah, and who makes it?
This is Drew Estate.
Is it really?
Yeah,
of course.
So this
we
is
always,
like,
somehow we always wind up back.
but it's like a one-off Drew Estate. Like it's not like a line. It's like this is it. Like it's a Nica Rustica, and they make some different sizes.
So it's its own stick, but it's legit just a stick by Drew Estate.
It's a stick by Drew Estate.
I like that.
I know. I kind of like it too. It's less like intimidating. It's actually what I thought cigars were. It's like, oh,
I bought a cigar.
I bought this cigar.
Yeah.
So when it first came out, people were like, oh, is it like a Liga, just in a different wrapper, some different filler? And it's its own one-off. And to be honest, man, I don't know a ton about it, but I think it's like MSRP of $7 or $8.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
So it and it sounds like, it just kind of has that rustic feel to it. It's got the hard pigtail. It's got the closed foot. It's toothy. It just looks like a cigar we would enjoy. And I remember liking it, when I was early on in my smoking career.
I think we're gonna have to bite the bullet on the cold. I just realized we have no exhaust.
Oh yeah, we can open one of we'll figure it out.
We could open the top door there.
Yeah.
Or maybe
We can crack it, or we can crack one of these windows. We'll see how smoky it gets.
It's gonna get really smoky in here. It gets smoky in my 5-car garage.
Very true. All right, we'll see what that does for us.
All right.
Did you get a light there? It's got a closed foot, which is
Yeah, I got it. I like having a closed foot. Honestly, I think it acts like a wick and helps you get a more even.
Oh, I never even thought of that.
Because I struggle. I never really thought of it until I think the last closed foot stick I smoked, and I realized I got a really good light on it. And I struggle with getting good light. It's just one of my flaws. I'm not perfect. But with the closed foot, it almost helps ensure a more even
burn.
Light once you actually get into the cigar.
I heard a cigar reviewer say it's kind of cool when you have a closed foot. If you take that initial hit, you're getting only wrapper for that first 1 or 2 hits.
That's interesting.
So to get a flavor of just what that wrapper tastes like.
Huh. I'm gonna need a little touch up there. I fucked myself up. Dude, did I even tell you? So our podcast has turned into it's almost like a good 30% Eric's Dating Escapades podcast.
I love it.
Did I ever tell you? I don't think I brought it up on the air.
Do a slow click. Gives it time to for the air to mix with the fuel and do
Gets
whatever
a little bit
magic
of fuel
it
in there
does.
before the spark or something. Did I tell you about this archery event that I was doing?
No.
Match.com archery event? I didn't tell you about it at all.
No.
I don't think I did. Yeah, I realized I was going to bring it up, I think, our last episode, because I went last Sunday. So what it was through Match.com.
Okay.
It was at this thing that I've never heard of. Apparently throughout the country, LL Bean owns different parks. I don't know if you knew that.
I worked for LL Bean and I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Through grad school.
Do you know what LL stands for?
Leon Wood.
Yeah. So, all right. So during a little icebreaker thing.
We had to alert, we had to go to LL Bean University.
I can tell that LL Bean employees are well versed in LL Bean.
I probably know more than I remember that I knew.
The guy kind of running it, at the end. So basically, it was at an LL Bean thing. I'll get into more detail what the event was, but it was arranged through Match, hosted by LL Bean. So at the end of it, there's no Match employees there. There's no matchmakers there or anything. It's like you just showed up to this LL Bean thing, and it just so happens that everybody else is single. But at the very end, they're giving us the little spiel because they want us to come back to LL Bean and buy more LL Bean stuff. So, that's when I was talking about how they were very proud of LL Bean. And the guy goes, he's like, anybody want to take a guess what LL stands for? I'm like, ladies love? Ladies love Bean? I don't know. Had everybody dying. But, all right, so let me tell you about it. It was an archery event.
Because they do, LL Bean does like shooting events, or I would assume archery, but fishing's real big because they have their own fly fishing stuff.
Yeah.
Was it at the Marlton store?
No. This was at a park. This wasn't a store. They own parks. LL Bean owns parks. This was at a park out in Downingtown, PA. Gorgeous, on a lake. With it looked like the bottle, like the Hidden Valley Ranch bottle in the background behind the lake, dude. It was just serene.
What a great description! I know exactly what you're
the
talking
rolling
about.
hills with the light,
green grass, blue water,
and so they do paddle boarding there, which I've wanted to get into paddle boarding. It's a little intimidating. I'm not great in the water. They do lessons there on a lake where it's still water, so that seems cool.
And it's fun. I've owned one.
Have you?
Yeah, because my parents lived in Marlton Lake, so off a lake. So it's once or twice you'll be great, and it's a great workout. It's fun too. But
the idea that I can go learn at the lake, that's cool.
And that's a good dating event kind of too. That is a good dating
event. They do hikes, like you said, and they do it for all different skill levels apparently. Mountain biking, I believe. They definitely do kayaking. They do fly fishing there in their lake. So, all right, show up to this event. It happened to be like a beginner's archery. Think like high school gym class archery.
Yeah.
That's what this is
Shooting
like.
each other in the ass. And
Right, yeah. I was half tempted to show up dressed like Rambo, just as a joke.
Robin Hood would have been better.
Well, it was going to be Rambo, Robin Hood, or Cupid, one of the three.
An easier costume, diaper.
Yeah, just a diaper and nothing else. So I show up, I have no idea what to expect. They say this is ideal for people like age 35 to 55 or something like that, right? Wow. And I'm 38, so I have no idea what to expect. So...
all dudes.
Yeah, honestly. But here's what I'll say before I get into the details. Essentially, within the realm of possibility, it was as good as I could have expected. And I say within the realm of possibility because as good as I could have expected would be like, 12 naked women, oh, Eric Allen's here. We're ready to party.
We're doing archery, but not with bows and arrows.
Yeah, exactly. So there was 12 people, 7 girls, 5 guys. The girls were a tighter age range and closer to my age. The guys were more spread out. So me and 4 other guys, I think one of them was essentially ruled out. Like I think he was too young. One of them was clearly too old for the girl. I mean, I would think. I don't know what they're into. And that really put me in competition with like 2 guys. The one guy who I could tell was clear, I don't know if he was, I want to say clearly. He looked like a reformed meth addict or something. He showed up to this dating event wearing basketball shorts and a stained t-shirt and a backwards hat. Yeah. Just kind of a little whiskey tango.
Yeah.
And then the other guy was just hapless. I think he was a little older than me, maybe not a ton, maybe in his mid 40s. But during the icebreaker, they ask you to, your name. What do you like to do? Outdoors activities do you like? And what outdoor activity is on your bucket list? And this guy, he said his bucket list thing was he actually wanted to learn paddleboarding. But he said he bought a paddleboard and the roof rack last year, but he still hasn't figured out how to put the roof rack on the car, and he's afraid the paddleboard's going to blow off on the road, so he kind of just gave up. So I'm like, all right, this guy's not too much competition.
So Johnny, give up.
Yeah. So I'm like, all right, this is the odds are ever in my favor.
Yeah,
I'm all right, this is good. And I'm just being me and whatever, and so I'm vibing pretty well with a few of the women. But a couple, nothing crazy funny happened, but a couple things. One was, I am not good at archery, but
did you know that going into this?
Yeah, for sure. I knew I was not good at archery.
Because your folks are hunters, and I'm assuming they bow hunt.
Oh, and I learned how to bow hunt. That's how I know I'm not good at archery.
Oh, yeah.
I have enough experience to know I'm not good.
I'm good enough to know I am not.
Right. That said, I suppose if you really think, I didn't really think about this ahead of time, given all my firearms training and stuff, I'm sure bow enthusiasts and gun enthusiasts would say they're entirely different to shoot. But if you're not really good with a bow or I haven't shot a bow in 20 years, having a bunch of firearms training certainly is going to make you just better at the bow naturally. Right. So I was easily the best. Of every one of my arrows, from start to finish, everyone hit the target. That put me in the best. Now, And I was, the thing is,
LL Bean thinks they got a ringer. Like, oh, there's a
I was gonna say-
Olympic archer champ,
I was
Eric
gonna say,
Allen.
I really wasn't trying to like be that guy, but I think I was accidentally that guy. I was done shooting. You get 5 arrows, and then you wait for everybody to finish, and then you go take the 5 out of the target. I would be done my 5 arrows before anybody was like done their second, and then every one of mine hit the
Well,
target.
because remember that first time it doesn't stay on. You
Well,
can't figure
see,
it
that's
out.
the problem. I know enough about
How to
the
notch,
bow.
how to do
I know
it.
enough about the bow to know, well, from firearms training and stuff to know, you forget about that stuff. Because the longer you have the string back and are trying to hold it, you're more shaky than ever, right? So my approach was going to be like, I don't know where this fucking thing's going to go. I'm going to aim as I draw, and once I'm fully drawn and the bow is fully up, I'm going to look, try to
Make sure no
aim it
one's in
like
there.
all at the same time and
Yeah.
just kind of go. And that was the approach that worked.
Yeah.
So there was a little, when you said like they're going to think there's a ringer, I mean, some girl literally started like, oh, there he goes again, the sniper, and I'm like, come on, like, I don't know, like, am I that guy, or is she like actually impressed? I don't really know. So it was funny. All right, so a couple funny
That's tough
things.
because you don't know anyone's personality, you don't know anyone's humor, you don't know anyone's baggage. Wow.
And the thing is, I don't hold back. Like I always say this to people, I can't be anything but me. I just am. And so like
That's why we're friends.
Right. And so at one point, they were all in the line doing our thing, and they mix us up. And when they mix us up, I happened to be next to this girl who started chatting me up in the very, very beginning. So we kind of had talked for 5 minutes, hadn't talked for a while, and now we're next to each other. And the guy in charge, the instructor, he's like, all right, everybody, that once we got mixed up, he's like, you're all like in new lanes now, so make sure, like, identify your target, don't shoot
Right.
the wrong target. And I just, jokingly, obviously, I turned to the girl, I was like, don't you dare shoot my fucking target. I'm like, and then as it came out of my mouth, I was like, that's not appropriate.
And I hope she gets that.
Yeah.
It's a total ingest.
By the way, they made us wear masks, even though it was outdoors. So that was a problem. I had to judge how sexy a girl was by body alone, and I had to try to judge age. Everybody's wearing sunglasses and masks.
God.
I had to try to judge age by
By cheek.
no, like I mean,
Hands?
forehead and back of hands. Which, to be fair, they're pretty good indicators for age. Like those are two things that age on people because they get the most sun.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, but still, at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, I got her somewhere between like 38 and 52.
The exact range of the people
Yeah, exactly.
invited.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good point.
You really.
I really narrowed it down there.
You
So-
really deduced that one.
So I'm like, don't you dare shoot my fucking target. And I realize as I'm saying it, I'm a weird guy with two eyes peering above a mask. At like she can't see my smile or like
Right,
whatever.
yeah.
So and she I don't think she was like offended, but she was like, whoa, I'm a lady. Like whatever. But talking to that same girl, we kind of kept talking. It wasn't really a big deal.
I'm a lady.
She winds up, it comes out that she had been to like 10 of these match events. And I was like, oh, interesting. I said, like, do you, I don't know how.
She's seasoned.
She's seasoned. She's been to like 10 of these events. And I asked something like, have you ever like communicated with somebody through the app like after this? And she's like, well, I don't have the paid plan, so I can't message people. So if they don't get my number while they're here, oh well. And I was like, so you've been to 10 events, you never met anybody. I was like, are you Marla from Fight Club? You just go to all the meetings with no intention?
That was a great.
Right? Dude, I told my other friend about it. He was like, dude, that's a good pull. She had short, dark, like black hair too.
Did
like,
she get the reference?
She did, and she laughed, which was funny.
Good. Because that could go either way too. That reference could have went either way too.
Well, and that was after the other thing, and I'm
Okay.
like,
you're already there
She's just
anyway.
getting a full dose of Eric,
Yeah.
and she's gonna decide if she wants that or not, if that's her humor or not.
Maybe not the worst thing in the world.
Not the worst thing in the world, right? And so it was funny, and her and I got along well. A couple other women were like clearly gravitating towards me, and like I'm not trying to be arrogant, like it just was. And until I get to the punchline when it's like, well, clearly I'm not being arrogant. So, we get the end. We're back by the campfire. The instructor's doing his whole how awesome LL Bean is kind of thing. And he's just droning on and on and on. And he's like, all right, he's like, we're not kicking you out. If you guys want to keep mingling, you can do that. Beautiful view down by the lake. And as soon as he said that, I was like, I'm going down by the lake. Because I didn't. He just kept droning on. I'm like, that was a way for me to end it for everybody. So I go down by the lake. 2 girls follow me. like if I ranked every girl there, like they were the 2 I wouldn't have wanted to follow me.
The one you talked to did not.
No, so there's 3 in total that I was like somewhat interested in. None of those 3 followed me. And when I got back up, like when I kind of turned around, like 3 minutes later, everybody, guys and girls, were like gone. I was like, and then it just reminded me, it was a great experience. You're with a lot of like-minded people, but most people put a check in the box when it comes to dating, so they can tell themselves and their friends that they're trying. Like you hang around at the end of that event if you're really trying, because we're all shooting.
You can't date during archery.
We're all shooting the whole time. You're really getting brief glimpses. Like you would think people would hang around, and
especially
2 did. 2 hung around to talk to me. They just were the 2 I was not interested in.
And they weren't the 2 that were near.
They were 2 I wasn't interested in. Yeah.
Did any interactions go, and was that said, or like how, like, does that get awkward when that happens?
It didn't get awkward, surprisingly. I mean, it was a little awkward at the very, very end when I'm like in my car and one of those girls, like I happen to put my window down and she's like up at my car talking to me, like, and I'm like putting it in reverse, slightly. But I was just like, all right, see ya.
Well, see you later.
Yeah.
Big gulps, huh?
And so here's the thing. The premise of it is, and my guess is this is why people left. My guess is people left because they know also. Like in my head, I was like, I'm not great at picking women up in the wild, but in this setting, I would have had no problem asking a girl for her number. Right. Where I drew the line was, you have 3 girls sitting next to each other. I'm not gonna be like, can I get your number? Can I get your number? Can I get your number? That's weird. So
it's like the show.
Premise
like
is
Give a girl a rose.
You're supposed to get an email after the event that says, hey, here's all the people that were there for their dating profile, so you can go to their dating profile and keep talking. I never got an email. So now I'm like, fuck, there's a couple girls I really want to talk. Dude, one of them, this event was an hour and 15 minutes away. One of them lives 10 minutes from me. Like, of 7 girls at an event over an hour away, one lives 10 minutes from me. Like, that's serendipitous. It was Marla. I did. I emailed match support.
Good.
And I was like,
yo, where's
WTF, mate?
Yeah. I went and archered.
Yeah.
I did my part. Like, you guys got to do.
And I went and archered, and my wiener's still dry. Come on, match. Get it together.
I like the one girl who was like, I want to date, but I'm not paying for their service to message. Like, that girl, it may be my favorite because...
Marla.
Because the whole point of online dating is to have the convenience of online. And she's like, well, yeah, but I'm not going to... Like you said, maybe it's more just I'm checking boxes that I'm actively trying. My mom and aunt aren't going to bug me at Christmas.
That's what I think.
Whatever.
I really do.
That's tough.
Yeah, but I wanted to tell you about that match event. It was interesting, but I had a great time. I'll go do more match events. But
I love that you told the story. I'm bummed that when I was at LL Bean, that would have been like a perfect job for me. I would have like totally done that.
They're hiring.
Huh?
They're hiring. Go see what this summer.
I'm on, man.
Summer job.
New job. New career.
Go teach people to archer.
LL Bean
match. There was one.
I have my archery merit badge in Boy Scouts.
So there's 12 of us. There's 3 instructors, and there was probably about 7 instructors.
Any female instructors?
Yes. Of the 3 instructors, 2 guys, 1 woman, but they were all older. Almost like you could tell it was like the retirement jobs kind of thing. But there was about 7 or 8 instructors in training, kind of off to the side. I didn't really get a good look at any of them, but they were just kind of there. But at one point, after the guy, we're on the line shooting archery, he mixes us up again. And then for the last one, he's like, all right, you guys figure it out. Just go be next to somebody you're not next to. And I was like, we paid $43 to be here because we can't figure it out.
That's great. This is a non-arrow related question. I have a non-archery related question.
Like everybody just died.
But dude, that's got to be tough because it's, I mean, not ragging on what it is. It's a good outlet, but it's a forced activity. But the premise isn't the archery lesson. Like the premise is to mingle and meet. So the people who left afterward, is that why they're single? Or are they just not
or they
minglers?
Just know that email normally comes because actually there was like 4 or 5 people, I think about 4 people there that it was not their first event, and so I kind of.
This was your first event.
This was my first event, yeah. And there's about 4 people there at least that I know of that it wasn't their first event. If I had to guess, there's probably another 3 more that didn't want to admit it, or I just didn't I didn't talk to any of the guys, so I don't know.
Hey, bud.
But dude,
straight shooting there.
But so I'm figuring they're gonna figure it out, and I'll get that email eventually. But I was texting with you about this a little bit. So, being completely hetero and everything, I sent you 3 pictures the other day, and I said, which one would be the best for my dating profile?
Talk about hetero, I was like, oh, this one definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, there was like,
And you were like, dude, you're smiling that one. I was like, yeah, but also my butt in that one.
I was like, cool. I didn't want to be the first to say it.
So, dude, it's and again, this isn't arrogance. It's just a statement on us and dating and world and life, and it's nothing new to anybody. But
You're allowed to be proud, you dude. You're working hard.
Well, how superficial we are. So I am not joking. Like, if there's a way where you could create a formula that's put out a score between like the volume of women you match with and their quality, and it came with some kind of fucking score.
Right.
Since I put that picture on my profile 3 days ago, that number would have tripled.
Your stock went up. Bud.
Dude, I have like there's
you were GameStop.
There's 4 girls I'm talking to right now since like 2 days ago when I put that picture that are like, all 4 of them. I'm like, I can't wait to go on a date with them. I can't wait to like.
Good for you.
To
Which you're
talk
right.
to
It
them
is.
and-
But therein lies the initial
a
hardship of dating because we
yeah.
are animals.
Yeah.
My wife and I were just talking about. I was like, you can't take the animal out of the human. Like we are.
True.
We like. There's a reason like visual is so important to us, and it's not being like. That's why we always have to feel like we have to say, even joking. Oh, I'm hetero, or oh, I'm not being superficial. Like you're allowed to. Like I hate that we're in a society that, like I'm not in the best shape of my life, but I dropped 100 pounds this last year, so I don't look the best I've ever looked. But I'm damn sure better than like even we were joking like the angles are different, whatever.
Yeah.
But like you shouldn't have to say like, oh well, this isn't me being superficial.
I probably don't have to. It's just
or like the no filter generation, like oh this is me no filter.
Yeah.
You know. Like,
now you don't even see that anymore because it's just like we all use filters. Yeah, none of us look this good. These are all filters. My pictures were no filter, but no. So
those eyes, come on, those filters.
it's yeah.
Did you set them up and just take them like as you're?
So yeah, I was getting ready to work out. I was literally it's kind of random. So it won't make a whole lot of sense. So I won't go because people haven't seen the picture, but. Essentially,
we'll put it up
I had the
in the
foam
episode.
roller in my hand, and I was kind of just walking by, and light went in my eye, and I was like, "That's probably good lighting for a picture." And
See what the podcast has done.
That's true.
You've become
so I kind of
Ansel
recreated.
Adams. Ansel Adams.
It was
photography.
essentially a candid selfie. In that, like, if there was a person there just taking random pictures, they would have gotten that shot candidly.
Right.
But once I realized it, I recreated it and selfied it.
Dude, it's fun. You sent me. You were like, I like all these. I was like, do that because, like you said, so dating profile pic, and like you said, it may not make sense because
marketing.
I felt like it personified your personality. Like it was a photo. Like the other ones, like you were like, cool hand Luke looking. Again, you looked great. It wasn't they didn't look good.
They didn't look as authentic.
And the smile brought in who you are.
That's true.
Like the approachableness, because you are. Like you're a dude. We've said it since we met. Like we've laughed together, cried together. Like you said, we're guys that like can give each other hugs, but then tell the dirtiest joke
right.
ever. Like you know 100%. What I mean? Or talk
Well,
about life, death, and everything in between.
I tell sometimes when I start talking to girls, and maybe they see me online, and then we get to know each other, and they're like, "Wow, your personality isn't what I thought from the pictures at first." And I was like, "Yeah, like I'm the nicest guy you'll ever meet in the body of somebody that looks like he can kill you." Like
with tattoo. Yeah, right. Yeah. Like, and that's what it is. It's like we're so afraid of how we look and how we're perceived, and it kind of gets in the way of who we are. Did you ever see that movie?
But we have to be. I kind of just proved it. Like,
oh no, I'm not saying. I just wish.
But almost in a way, what I mean when I say that is, I'm like, I kind of proved to myself. I'm like, man, like, and you and I have talked about this, right? Where we went years seeing pictures of ourselves, but for some reason not realizing how fat we were.
Well, I think it's the liar in us that's saying, well, I carry it well. Like I always say, well, I'm big, so it's okay to be fat. But then,
like, now just changing this one fucking picture on my profile, I'm like, wow, I should have done this a couple of years ago. Like, this is, like, this was really, because I literally, like, in my head, I'm like, man, why am I, like, struggling? I'm a good-looking guy, and this. Oh, no, it just comes down to because that initial picture I'm having trouble getting matches with.
But I also think you're doing more than just changing, like, what that change has led to for you.
The vibe in the universe.
It is. It's like putting that like rock in the lake and the ripples going out. Because yes, you've changed your health, but you've also been doing a lot of self-reflection
Yeah.
and introspective. That's the hard work. Changing a diet's fucking simple.
In
You
theory, yeah.
I'm not saying it's easy. It's simple.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Like, there's a difference between easy and simple.
Right.
If it's easy, everyone would eat better. But it's simple to go, I'm going to
That's a good
remove
point.
this and that out of my diet.
Yeah.
But the hard work comes from then the next change is, how do I be a better, like, how is this going to influence me better
Yeah.
overall?
That's a good point because
And you probably feel better. Like, think of it like you're less, like, honestly. Like,
but the thing is, through a dating app, a girl can't necessarily get that. But
Ever.
it's like the universe does. I do agree with that. Like, it's the way, you know, what all that affects, right? Your confidence. It affects, in a traditional sense of dating, that affects how you walk into the bar. It affects how you walk into the bar and the way you carry yourself in that swagger.
right.
Online dating is not that way, but it's almost like I feel like it's that swagger is in the universe in a way.
But it's
I think
funny,
there's
like,
something
all right,
to
so
that.
I've known you like over a decade, and like I said, those 3 pictures, I was like, that's the picture that most
Is
represent
you.
is you.
That's
Not that doesn't look good.
Yeah, you know,
That's
a good point.
you.
That's a good
Like,
point.
and especially, I'm glad that you weren't like, which of these pictures do you like the best? You were like, for a dating profile,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think? And I was like, oh well, this one because of
Yeah, that was a
the
good point.
It wasn't even the picture; it was the feel of the picture of, like, you know, because it's got your strength and your softness, like, it's all of it, you know.
But you had said something that almost dovetails into something else I wanted to kind of briefly hit on. You said, like, we're animals, right, in a way, and what comes to my mind when people say we're animals, one of the things that comes to my mind always, and I think it's because it's just something we've all learned in like part of our primary studies, the concept of fight or flight. Like that's one of our animalistic kind of traits that we have that we're all very familiar with. And I think about, I'm sure you heard about the last shooting, the cop that shot the 16-year-old. Did you see the body cam footage and the whole thing?
Just what was on, like, the news, just the few clips that were on the news.
Did you see the body cam footage though, kind of from when he got out of the car through to when he shot her?
No.
So yeah,
I didn't see the full.
a lot of times the ones on the news, it stopped right
Yeah.
before it shot her. I watched the one that, and the one that the video that I saw that shows more. It doesn't show a ton more. It, like, the one that you're probably talking about is the first one I saw, and it stops, the screen goes black and says the cop shot her at that point. When you watch the full video, it's like bang, 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 bang. You see her fall. You see the knife go rolling out away from her as she falls. You see a couple cops run over to give her first aid, and then the video cuts off. So I didn't see a ton more. There's not much else.
Right.
And I don't want to get into the whole racial side of it at all. In my opinion, this is not racial anyway. In this case, certainly there's other cases that are, but the fighter flow, like where I go, where my head goes, as somebody with like military training and stuff
Yeah.
like that, I was so impressed with that cop and the way he was able to act in that situation. So if you remember, the
Especially in today's climate at all.
exactly. And so you're right. He's going into a scenario where he knows if he shoots somebody, he's probably going to lose his job, probably going to get death threats. Like, he's going in knowing that, but also knowing he has to do his job.
And he wants to get home to his family,
And he
too.
needs to get home to his family. And then in the scenario, though, I think it was about 15 seconds between when he gets over there, starts saying, like, what's going on, guys? Girl knocks down another girl, kicks her. Some big dude comes over, kicks that girl also. And then the original girl goes, and I wonder if she didn't go to just knock the girl down, but there was a car there, so pinned her against the car and had the knife in her hand and cocks back with the knife. So the cop shoots her 4 times. She's about to murder somebody. That's what you have to assume, right? People don't carry around knives
Right.
and threaten to stab people with them, before taking them to dinner.
Right.
You have to assume it's to kill them. And so I just want to commend the cop who's never going to hear this.
Yeah.
Frankly, on being able to
Be in that moment.
be in that moment. Yeah, like we all talk about stressful days at work.
I was actually going to say, like, I had a day that threw me curveballs, nothing, like, not even close to anything like that.
And that cop saved a life potentially. Right. He potentially saved several lives. And you know what happened?
But then
LeBron James put a picture after this all happened right before, I think, the George Floyd verdict. Mm-hmm. And Derek got sentenced to jail for murder. LeBron James took a picture of the other cop who was a hero, put it on Twitter and said, "You're next." Now, I don't know how people would perceive that. I perceive that as a threat.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that cop, I don't know that it would go anywhere. I think that cop should sue LeBron James for
Defamation,
like,
or whatever. Yeah.
for put it this
Something.
way, if Donald Trump is guilty or accused of inciting the Capitol riot, how is LeBron James not guilty? You're next with a picture? How is he not guilty of inciting violence?
And that goes back to something we've talked about numerous times. Why do we hold sports figures to this standard, and celebrities in general, politically, socially, like, you know what I mean? Like, dude, you're a great basketball player. I'm not going to take that away from you, but maybe like our morals don't have to align on everything. Like, you know what I mean?
That's true.
Tiger Woods, the golfer, like, oh, people were like, oh, he cheated. Yeah, he's a dude.
Well,
know?
I want him to get in trouble for his last accident, but that's a whole other thing. Like, have you seen much about Tiger Woods' last accident?
I just know he's like all goofed up. Like, was he under the influence again? Because
Well,
that I know he was having trouble with.
He's had trouble with it
Prescription,
twice,
yeah.
right? So this time, the cop said, we did not draw blood because we had no reason to suspect he was under the influence.
What about the wreck? We forget that celebrities and these high-profile athletes do not live in our world.
I've always
Like-
been saying that too, yeah.
Like, and when people are like,
It's a
in our
different
world-
reality. It's an
That-
entirely different reality.
Like, you don't live in a paycheck to paycheck, something, you leave your apartment in the morning to go work a whatever shift and then a double. Like, that stuff is still there. There is no maid. There is no...
Well, and that's the thing. And so I've had a few friends that are quite wealthy. Nowhere near LeBron James wealth. Not even close, but there's a point of diminishing returns. They're at the point, though, where they kind of afford the same stuff you can.
Right.
And so... And it's not knocking anybody. It's just the truth that, like, so I would have a friend that he might ask me, like, oh, what do you do with all your free time when you're not working or whatever? And I'm like, the things you don't. Laundry, dishes, cooking my own meals.
And that's why something like carving an hour a week to get together with a good friend and a good cigar is important. Because we don't just have frivolous time. Like, that's why I would rather smoke a $7 cigar once a week with you than a $100 cigar by myself.
Which, by the way, this
Dude.
does not taste like a $7 cigar. This is good.
And I'm going to say, like, for, Drew Estate has its moments, it has its great thing, but this is like a strict tobacco. This isn't an infused, this isn't a gimmick stick.
No.
Dude, this is like
I really like this.
This is something I would take, like, camping with the boys or just, like, something like this.
Definitely
it's
a
great.
good, it is a good camping stick. I would agree.
And it is like it has that rustic feel to it, like you said. It's got that, like, I think you've always kind of put it in a really cool way, like what you feel a cigar should be like in a movie, like if a cowboy had a cigar, But
This fits that category
it
for
really
sure.
does. And I like that we kind of picked a more rustic stick. Today happens to be Earth Day. We were talking about,
that's
like,
right.
all cigars are, like, my wife was asking, she's like, well, what is the difference? And I was like, well, all cigars are just it's all leaf, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we are actually trying to learn, like, the whole growing process. Now that we have a little bit of land, like, we planted a couple apple trees, a couple cherry trees.
Did you?
And
I'm gonna go see them.
learning about all of it made us realize, it, like, hit us in the face of how far removed we are as animals from understanding anything. Like, natural.
Yeah. That's a good
Like,
point.
if it doesn't come from Amazon or a supermarket, we're just like, I don't know, Google it? I don't know. So I said to my wife, I was like, what happens if Google went away tomorrow? Like, what do we do? She's like, we would have to wait seasons to understand. Like, that's why there were farmers' almanacs and things, because people were like, this is what you would plant. This is how you rotate crops and why and how. And, we're trying to learn we want to get a couple chickens, and just even trying to learn that process is, like,
It's
daunting.
cool.
It's
exciting,
it's
though.
cool, but it made us realize, like, how much we don't know about stuff we should.
Basic things, yeah.
And my wife brought up a good point. She's like, so we have access. She's like, Google is almost like our brain's hard drive, like the cloud. Like, well, we don't need to know that because we could always look it up.
Yeah.
But then we don't know it. Like, it's something we should know. Like, I should be able to walk my little plot of earth and understand it. Like, she's like, there are these berries. She's trying to figure out what they are.
Well, the good thing is you do have Google. So,
Right, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It is good. But it just made us realize, like, we're not, like you said, we're still animals. But some bird flying over knows if that's poisonous or not.
Right.
Some animal that eats knows if it can eat it or
Oh,
not.
yeah.
And we're like,
Oh,
what is
we are.
this? What is
And-
it?
and-
Can I make wine?
I mean,
What is it?
and think about it, like, and that's happened in the last 150, 100 years. You know,
In
not the
grand
technology piece, like, but I mean,
No,
like,
just
truly knowing your land. You know, 100, 150 years, depending on where you are in the country. Some places in the country, probably 50 years ago, a generation ago, or something.
Yeah.
You know, we're a lot more handy. I mean, they probably parts of the country they're still that handy.
And not even like, we talked about houses being money pits, and when we want electric and plumbing, someone should know how to do it. But like, I know just a little bit about a bunch of stuff, but enough to be dangerous and get myself in trouble. But with growing and stuff like that, like, nothing. I know zero. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so wanting to, wanting my kids in 10 years to go in the backyard and pick an apple off a tree, like, I want that to be their reality.
Yeah.
So, and hopefully they'll grow up with that knowledge and it won't get lost. Because these generations, that knowledge is not being passed down. Because I don't have it to pass down.
Well, I just can tell you, 10 years from now, Holden's not going to be picking an apple off your tree. He's going to be chasing tail at college.
I hope
probably.
so. Yeah. And in 10 years, he's 18, dude. That's crazy to think.
Holden?
Today. Yeah.
I thought he was 10.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, he's 9. He'll be 19. Jesus.
Yeah.
Definitely be in college. Man.
Neither of us knew your son's age. You said 8. I said 10.
But we were right, because when you take the average of that, we're good.
As a brand, we were correct.
So he'll see this and be like, oh, cool. My dad didn't know how old I was. Flavors? Like, what do you... Spend a little time with it. It's just, I don't want to use this as a negative term, like a basic tobacco, but it's definitely got some
It's not
spice
complex.
and some sweet. It's not complex, but
I would say
it's
there's
like
some
rich.
sweetness there. Almost kind of a
Sweetness
little
off the
vanilla.
wrapper. Yeah.
Like a little vanilla leather. A little bit of that natural sweetness. It is a Maduro. Yeah, I like if I had to kind of pare it down, I would say like a vanilla and tobacco sweetness.
Dude, I like it. This is another one where this is the perfect stick to sit and get wrapped up in conversation, because you're not like,
don't
you're
have to
still
think
enjoying
about
it,
it.
but you don't need to think about what you're smoking.
I feel
You just
like,
know
what
it
are you
tastes
drinking?
good.
Coffee?
I'm drinking coffee.
I was just gonna say, I bet this pairs well with coffee.
Because there is some like
It's just
black
that
licorice,
earthiness.
coffee
licorice,
bean.
There's definitely a little licorice in there. Yeah, that's a good point. I think, or I might call it like a fennel or something like that, for sure. So, a lot of times when we obviously we don't get too deep into various political issues or whatever, but we do tend to have opinions that are all over the map.
Because we're basic
And
dudes.
I just wanted to point out, like a lot of people are going to listen to this and not see it. And even the people that do, I'm kind of far away from the camera. The shirt I'm wearing, the
Yeah.
politically homeless. And when I just
love
showed
it.
up to your house, you were like, dude, I didn't know what to call it, but that's me. And that's why I bought the shirt. Because I started listening to this podcast. It's a guy I know called Politically the guy I know called Politically Homeless. No, the podcast is called Politically Homeless. I don't actually listen to the podcast, but he does pretty long snippets on Instagram, and so I'll catch like the kind of Cliff's Notes, and I tend to agree with him, and it's because he doesn't have an opinion based on politics. He has an opinion based off of like the logic of the issue, which is me, and it just so happens, I suppose, that he and I happen to have like similar values and stuff, because he'll call out people on either side of the aisle. He just didn't have any swag, so I Googled it and found somebody else had a shirt that said Politically Homeless, and I was like, yeah, you know what, everybody's riding around with their Trump or Biden stickers on the car.
Yeah.
I just want a shirt that says Politically Homeless. I don't agree with any of you.
No, I like it. I like it. And I think we need more of that. I think we try so hard to squeeze ourselves into categories, and I think that's what gets us in I think that's part of it.
I understand the whole two-party system and why it would be necessary. Like, you couldn't have 100 people running and they've all got these various opinions,
Right.
and you're trying to do a matrix of like who has the most opinions. Like, I get why it needs to be kind of pared down to that two-party system. However, I don't agree that a party has to always feel a certain way about an issue. Like, no matter who you are in that party, you kind of always have to feel that way. And we're just starting to see a little crossing of the aisle with some politicians.
And I think because of what's happened.
Because of
has
what's
to come
happened,
to a head.
it's going to have to. And I respect that. But yeah, for me, I simply can't say I identify with either party, because I don't have opinions based off of a party's leanings. I have opinions based off of like logic and facts and
just how I feel. like how like we were talking about values and how like where my values align to, and that's what like what's the buzzword, bipartisanship. Like, you know, that's what.
Well, and I'm just
it
going to
shouldn't
say
come down
like,
to party. It should go down to what's
that's
in
why,
the human interest.
That's why I'm going to say, like, you know, when that cop that had shot that 16-year-old, like, I'm, you know, and that's an instance where, again, talking about like values and logic and how you feel, like, you know, it's incredibly tragic that the 16-year-old is dead. Like, that's incredibly tragic. That is a result of so many things, none of which are the cop's fault.
Yeah.
And when I look at that, as bad as I feel that a 16-year-old was shot, my initial sort of empathy goes to that cop who presumably tries to do the right thing every day.
Has to live with that
life
too.
Literally has to live with that on his conscience. All because, you know, he wanted to, he had to do the right thing. He wanted to do the right thing. And he did the right thing, and now he is so screwed.
And I work with kids that age, you know, so I see, and I work with an offshoot of those kids at an alternative program.
Something tells me you would say not all 16-year-olds are equal. Like you put a knife in a 16-year-old's hands, and you've probably seen some pretty bad 16-year-olds with that attitude and a knife. That's not a 16-year-old at that point.
And you know what's so funny? It comes off of we had several people from our district visit today, and I had a conversation with some colleagues about quote unquote bad kids. And we all kind of came to the consensus that was like it's not an instance like, well, they're bad because of X. It's just so many choices and so little coping skills that these kids were not given tools for their tool belt to even comprehend, and at such a young age. Like, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't have consequences, but I agree with you where you're like, it's just tragic. Like, some of these kids don't have a shot coming from the homes they came to, coming from, you know. They were given no tool. It's like, hey, build this, but you don't have any tools and you have nothing to do.
Saying that systemic racism played a role in her death is incredibly fair, right? Because that's what you're talking about to an extent. And it's not what you're calling it. But, like, she never stood a chance because the system around her, like, she was never given a chance.
Right.
That I am 100% on board with. What I'm not on board with is ruining that guy's life.
Oh, no.
Who did nothing wrong to, like, prove a point about what? Because what I think a lot of people fail to realize is the difference. Everybody uses the phrase systemic racism, but then they point to specific instances, which are sometimes racist and sometimes not.
Right.
There's a very big difference, right? There's a very big difference between the Derek Chauvin, like, who did something bad, who I also believe there's mitigating circumstances involved, like, because you go back to that fight or flight, that, you know, there's more to it than a white cop shooting a black person, right? There's also the scenario, the number of people around, the crimes that were committed, the area you're in, right? Think about this, right? Imagine I was coming up to punch you in the face in your backyard. Versus I was coming up to punch you in the face. And oh, by the way, you're in the middle of a war. You're in Iraq. You're in the middle of a war zone too. Like, it's one's a little bit more tense than the other. You can handle the threat of me coming at you a little bit differently in those two scenarios. The comfort of your own home versus a scenario where your life is at threat. Remember, this cop who shot her, he also just saw her knock somebody else down and then another rather large man kick her in the face. That cop, I think, would assume, okay, well, that big guy who just kicked her in the face, he's on the same team as the girl with the knife. Like, so that girl with the knife's not the only threat. Right. There's multiple threats there. Like, I gotta get off my soapbox. I get myself riled up. Unfortunately, I don't have the platform that LeBron James has to get my opinions out.
Yeah, and like I said, it kind of comes back to aligning ourselves more with morals and values than where you stand, even racially. But like you said, it goes so far beyond that, and that's part of what you like you were kind of alluding to, what systemic racism, people use that word, what that really entails and what that means. Right. But that's why you have to go layer upon layer upon layer, and that what's the phrase, cause
like an onion.
Well, yeah, but things can be correlated but not directly related.
Like correlation, not causation.
Right. Like I could say people with with bigger shoe sizes have higher IQs. Did you know that? No. Well, is that true? Well, it is, but when you peel back the layer of why, because I have more knowledge than my son, and my foot's bigger than his.
Right.
But you know what I mean? A great point. But when you say that initial fact, you're like, well, you know, I have a larger foot than you. But But that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, you have to peel back and go, well, when you look at it, you know, an infant versus, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
So peeling back the layer, right? Those two things are correlated, but not caused. They're related, but your shoe size doesn't cause it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's all right. So I'm gonna butcher this, but it was sort of a fable's not the right word. It's I don't know, something a device used for like learning or to kind of prove a point. And so it was this little kind of story, and it was describing. And this is why I'm gonna fuck it up because I'm not a science guy, but it was describing like dihydrogen oxide or something like that.
Okay.
And it was like, 1 inch of this can kill people. X number of people die from this every year. So forth, so on. Like all these traits, and you'd be like, oh my God, whatever that is.
That's the dangerous substance.
Ban that shit. And then you're like, yeah, it's water. It's
right.
H2O.
Right.
Like it's if you.
But it's true. An inch does kill you. Like,
right. Exactly.
All you need to do is cover
And
your mouth and nose with
my
it.
point on that is, you can take any statistic, and if you zoom in close enough on it, you will get the result you want. And you can have an opinion, and I can have an opinion, and we can zoom in close enough on the same statistic and come up with different conclusions. That's why I get into the you have to back up, and that's when like if you were to simply zoom that camera in on that instance, you're gonna see nothing at all except somebody shooting somebody else,
right.
And you're gonna say, "Whoa, that cop just shot a 16-year-old!
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit!" And then you zoom up a little bit, and now her hands, and you're like, oh, well, she had a knife. And you zoom out a little bit more, you're like, oh, that knife is pointed at a person. Right. You zoom out a little further, and you rewind a little bit, you're like, oh, and she just got done kicking somebody else in the face. Like, you zoom out far. There's a lot going on here. Zoom out even further, you see the other guy that's in it, and the 5 other people that are in it, and you're like, okay, there's more at play here.
And how it kind of circles around in my head is, I forget the quote, but they talk about, like, highly effective people dealing with, like, layers of things. Like, not just understanding what's happening, but what that could lead to. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And like understanding, like, well, why do people make money with stocks, or why do people successful in this? Because they see 4 or 5, like a chess move. Yeah. They see steps ahead, and then layers above and below.
And I
whatever
think
it's called, the macro, the micro,
and I think that's why. I was tooting my own horn. I'm pretty fucking intelligent. And I think that's why there's a lot of these scenarios that I see, and people have a very strong opinion, and I don't. I'm a little bit more in the middle, because I'm like, well, hold on. We haven't seen this. We haven't seen this. Hold on.
Most intelligent people will tell you, like, will say, like, I don't have an opinion on that because I don't know. You haven't given me enough information for me to make it a point. Right. You know, it's not asking you your favorite ice cream flavor. It's
then other people will just say, nope, I saw a grown man shot a kid. That's
Wrong.
it. That's it. Okay, well, that's a good way to point. And you know what? I haven't thought of it that way. And maybe that would help me be more empathetic to understand other people's positions more. Like, okay, Eric, it's not their fault. Like, their brain works differently than yours. They just don't see as much as you see.
I've gotten less upset in my 30s by simply taking people at face value and say, just like I want people to feel like I'm doing the best I can, they're doing the best they can with what they have.
My buddy Jay says that all the time, and I always say, when I used to in my last company, and I was a leader, I would try to teach that and impart that on people. All that being said, I'm not great at it. It's something I work on. I'm actually I would consider myself kind of poor at it. But I would, obviously always try to teach those younger than me exactly that, and I would just phrase it as the same way my friend Jay phrases it, is just assume the best.
And that goes. Taking that full circle is what I was saying. Like, you've been working on yourself, not only the physical, but realizing that you could say that and saying, well, no, I'm not the best at that.
My therapist is taking some vacations after quarantine.
But you know what I'm saying? That takes a lot for someone to be like, hey, I'm not good at this.
Yeah.
I forget, we were in the gym and Holden's kind of starting to slowly work out with me. And he's like, wow, Dad, like, you can do more push-ups than me. And I was like, you know why I can? Because I couldn't 2 years ago. And my buddy who I was lifting with was like, well, where are your weaknesses? I was like, push-ups. Like, oh, then you know what you're going to do every week?
Right.
Push-ups.
So,
because you can't get better at something that you don't do and don't realize you don't do well.
So junior year of high school, I had a pre-cal teacher, Mr. Ludman. And I forget there was a show on TV around that same time, and they used the Soul Man song as their theme song, like, I'm a soul. So that year, like, everybody was just like, he's Mr. Man. Whatever.
He had his own
cool
theme.
Teacher. But one of the first days of class, he's like, I want to make something very clear to all of you. I am not smarter than you. I just know more than you, but if you pay attention, like you'll know this too when you leave here. And I mean, I was still a junior in high school. I still didn't pay attention, but that has stuck with me. I remember his name. I remember that lesson, and it's something that I've carried with me in life. And it helps frame, the way you can treat others. It, just like you said, the Holden. It's like it's not that. I mean, in this case, yes, I am stronger than you, but it doesn't mean your strength potential is higher than his.
No.
It just means you have more practice.
Pound for pound. Right.
You
I've just done them more. I've done it more. And I say that to my kids all the time. And we've had this conversation on this podcast. My job as a dad isn't to be like, I'm dad, I rule with an iron fist. Yeah, there's sometimes you need to just, because I said so. But I need them to know that I've lived longer than you. That's it. That's our only difference. Yeah. We have similar DNA. We have similar strengths and weaknesses. I've just lived more than you, and it doesn't mean you're gonna be smarter than me. You're gonna be that. You have the potential to do that. I hope you are. That's the goal.
Well, I was gonna say, if you do your job, like ideally, he will be better.
I don't
stronger,
want them to
faster.
be afraid. Like I'll never. Like I feel like parenthood, 1, 2, 3 generations back, it was like, there are people who were Supermen. Mm-hmm. We're not, dude. Like you need to know. Like I'm just as afraid.
Now I will say some parents have gone way too far the other direction to where they're just friends with their kids, and that's not good. I mean, you have 3 of the most well-behaved kids I've ever seen, and and they're kind people. And I know you. I mean, I've never seen you discipline them, but I've known you I have an idea around how you probably discipline them, and
I'm nowhere near perfect. I can tell you that. But I think the thing that separates me is like I'll be like, guys, that was not about you guys, that was me. Yeah. And they need to hear that. That's even at 6.
That teaching them self-reflection and apologizing, that lesson is just as important as the original lesson you were teaching to clean up the room or something like that. Like both lessons are equally important. Like you should take pride in your stuff, and you should also own up for it when you fuck up.
And it's not easy, especially when you have another parent that because my wife will be like, wow, that's like, and I'm like, I don't want them to think that that's okay. Like for them to give up. Mm-hmm. Like it's not like, I don't care. The only thing we can control is effort. I can't control how smart they are. I can't control, but I can control how hard they work. Yeah. And I'll say the only reason I am where I am, I'm not the smartest guy. If I'm invested, I'll work on it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or I'll try to get better. Yeah. That's it.
If I could throw my 2 cents in on the lifting with Holden thing, I will say, having gone through this experience I've been going through with physical therapy and trying to undo my imbalances from so many years, my recommendation would be like, and I don't know if he's like really working out in earnest or if it's just periodically. But
it's like, periodically, and it's bodyweight stuff. I'm like, we're not getting there yet.
If it ever gets to where he wants to work out like in earnest, he's like, I want to lift. My recommendation would be the first 1 to 3 months are mostly bodyweight, some light weights, bands, and single arm and single leg movements and core work. Like no squatting. I would do single leg, like
lunges, anything,
Bulgarian split squats or something like that. Make each butt cheek strong individually, so you don't wind up with me with a fucked up back
and me too. I have everything, but I'm going to tell you, it was definitely from my hip pain was like from overuse, like moving and all that. Because the last 2 weeks, knock wood, like I felt so much better, and I'm stretching a lot more.
But here's the thing: I did what you did,
took me 40
which
years,
took a bunch of time off, like you did. And I've done that. We've both done that in our life. Take a bunch of time off and get back into it because both of us are the same. We're not perfect when it comes to fitness.
Life.
but then I've never lifted with you, which we should change that. But my guess is you're probably similar to me, being a bigger guy. Strength is your strength, and so when you do get back into the gym, you probably don't draw a line between what you can lift and what you should lift. Yeah. And so for me, I might get back into the gym and I can deadlift 500 pounds. But I shouldn't because my ligaments and they're not up for it. And so this time getting back into it, I did way more stretching and really slow, and that helped. But it wasn't perfect. It wasn't until I got into PT and got those single leg movements down did I actually fix. I'm still in the process of, but fix some imbalances to where it really cures some pain.
And I'm gonna, as an outsider listening to your journey, you're at a place where you're doing so much self-reflection and so much self-improvement that you're willing to listen to your body now.
That's fair.
It doesn't matter that you had that knowledge. You're at an age where you're willing to accept that. I'm at a place where my strongest days may very well be behind me, and I'm okay with that. The best
I don't
lesson,
think so. Now,
Right,
now that I'm doing what I'm doing,
No,
I'm
I
like,
get
dude,
that,
I think
but-
you'll get stronger.
I'm excited to see that, and I want to. That's why I said I want to work.
I'll
on
give you like
physical
my
therapy.
exercises and
Yeah,
stuff that
all
I got from
that.
PT. Like,
But you have like it's not luck that this is happening to you. You're on it, like, you know what I mean. You're not like, oh, but when you start to do well, like you said, the universe doesn't open up and say, oh, Eric's trying to get better, so we're gonna get better, because you're willing to listen to your weaknesses to make them strengths. It's no different than me telling, Mike when I first met him, like, oh, I've never benched over like 315. I have long arms. Just like I used to, I'm
Right.
big, so I carry my weight well.
I have long arms. The professional strongmen are like 6'9", 700
Exactly.
pounds.
But it's the lies we tell ourselves to not
yeah.
make us uncomfortable. And I read a quote yesterday that, man, I saved it, and I almost want to make it my screensaver on my phone. And it's like, be comfortable with discomfort. I was talking to a colleague, and I said, you got to watch this stupid video they were talking about lobsters. And a lobster grows because it gets uncomfortable. Its shell gets too small. They're a hard-shelled animal. Mm-hmm. And they have to go find a place and remove that shell and then be vulnerable. While they're a soft-bodied thing, they can be attacked, but they won't grow. So if lobsters were in our world today, they would just take an antidepressant or something. Well, I don't feel right in my skin. I'm uncomfortable. Oh, well, that's everything else. They would never grow. Discomfort leads to growth.
That's interesting.
Like
it's a cool analogy.
It's a cool analogy, and I'm not saying it's in every aspect
No,
of life.
it's not a perfect analogy, but it's a cool analogy.
From that discomfort, there's typically growth. Just like after a disaster, there's typically growth. Like, why do they naturally burn the forest? Like, so then it can grow back. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand how it works, but that's how nature is designed.
Sure. 100%.
We got like real introspective today.
I know. This was fun. You know why? Not really. This is bullshit reason why, but you made a good point about the stick. It's not a stick you have to think about that much.
So we can
the
spend more time
conversation is
talking.
taken front row, but that's kind of always the case. That's why I'm joking about the reason. But, dude, I want to go see your apple trees.
Yeah, I mean they're babies. They're definitely.
But you know what? The last 2 episodes, and I was actually thinking it before I even came here. I like our little tradition, like wrapping up the episode, just walking your property.
I know, finishing the stick
while we walk around there, walk the land a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know what? Let's cut it there. I was gonna have another story for you, but we'll talk about it next week or later.
Sure?
Yeah, I'm positive.
All right. Well, Nica Rustica, Drew Estate, like I said, for a I'm going to call it a bargain stick at a $7 or $8 price point.
I would call it a bargain at a $7 or $8 price. I wouldn't call it a budget stick, I guess. But I think it's a bargain at $7, $8. Like,
long
this is
filler.
A good fucking stick. And I messed up lighting it in the beginning.
And it kind of fixed itself a little bit.
I had to touch it up, and then it's held. So it's burnt really, really well. I maintain what I said about the closed foot helping light it. I messed up, and the lighter was wonky, and it just screwed me up a little bit.
I'm not getting any wrapper issues.
No wrapper issues at all. Yeah, dude, definitely. I'd like this. This is a do again.
The size is called El Brujito, and I thought that was gonna be like Brutus or something brutal, and I think it translates to like the shaman or the medicine man in like the Nica, because tobacco was first used by shamans and by witch doctors and stuff. So that's kind of like it's a cool, like, I like the culture of cigars because of that. Like, these could have been prescribed to us back in the day. Oh, you know what you need? An hour to yourself, relaxation,
and some cocaine. Fuck it.
Yeah. What's that? There was that meme going around, like the old-timey doctor. You have ghosts in your blood. You should probably do cocaine about it. Like,
you should
imagine being
that was the phrase that I loved. You should do cocaine about it.
And let's go back. In my next life, I want to be a doctor from the 1730s. I'm gonna drill in your head. You have a ghost in your head.
You have ghost in your blood. You should do cocaine about it. All right, man. On that note, and as always, long ashes.
Stay smoky, everybody.
Thanks for checking out the Cedar Culture Podcast. If you'd like that episode, go ahead, tap, like, follow, subscribe, whatever it is on your platform of choice. And if you are on YouTube, hit that bell as well to be notified of new episodes. It really helps us out. We appreciate it.
And then don't forget to head over to Instagram and Facebook and follow us as well.
Do it.
Do it.